Hi guys. So in this video, we're going to be talking about Hashmap. Okay. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get started on this. Let me go ahead and create a package first. New package. Let's just do Hashmap. Or I'm going to say my Hashmap. There you go. In this thing, let's go ahead and create a class first. Right. I'm going to do a main. I'm going to do again my hash map. Finish. Okay. So in this one, now what is a hash map, right? Hash map is basically a set of key value pair. Okay, it's just a map that has key value pair. So let me just write this definition down. Hash map is a map, right, with a set of key value pair. Okay, the map with a set of key value pairs. So key value, that's the most important thing. Okay, so how does this work? So usually, let's go ahead and let me just go ahead and create this. So how do you create a hash map? Just do hash map right here, hash map. Then you have the key value. Let's just go ahead and do this afterward. And so usually when we would use this, when it's a key value pair, so think of it from, like, let's say you're a student. And a student, we usually have an ID, right? We have a name of the student, and then we have the student ID. Or if we work somewhere, we usually have the employee name, and then we have an employee ID, right? So usually that's how it works. So or if we talk about other ones, like let's say every single individual in the US, we have social security number. So social security number, it is associated with with that specific person, right? It could be any of them. So whenever you have key value pair, in that case, that's when you use this. So hash map, let's say in this case, let us say my ID, just an example, right? Equal, we don't need this hash map. So my ID equals new, and then we have hash map, right? So we have this thing, right? Usually before, I think Java 7 or something, we had to put in, we have to put in whatever we put in here. So it's for key value, we have to say, so let's say we have name, right? We have string, and then we have ID. So hash map key value pair, right? The key value, let's say name, with the name associated, we have an ID. So ID is an integer, so we can actually say integer. So one thing to keep in mind, as you can see, we have this capital I over here, right? We cannot just say int. Okay, that wouldn't work. If I was to do this, you get the squiggly line. So you actually have to use the word integer. Is coming from like a wrapper class. We have to use that. So just go ahead and use that. If you need more information on the wrapper class, you can. I'm going to create another video on that, so you guys can review it at that time. So anyways, you have to say hash map. We have to have this, less than, greater than sign. And in this, basically this key and value. So key would be a string and value would be an integer. And then my ID new, my ID is, again, that's just an object name that I'm creating. And the new hash map, right? This hash map, that's basically this. And then we have this, again, we have this less than, greater than sign. So this is basically, right now we don't have to put in string integer here, but previously, I think prior to Java 7 prior to Java 7, you actually had to put all these things in here again, and then just ended with brackets. Anyways, so how do you actually create a hash map, right? So we have this my ID here. So you just say my ID dot. Again, you have all of these different methods that you can put in, right? You have clear, clone, put, and all of these different things, right? So we're going to go over some of them. But in here, in order to create one, you just do put, right? It gives you the key value null, right? It gives you the key value. Sorry, there. And I'm just going to close it out. So on here, because we have this string, right, we can say, let's say we can say John, right? And employee ID, let's say 0001. Okay. Then we have my ID dot put, right? Again, you can see string key integer value. So it tells you what to put in there basically. In here, we can say John Smith, right? Then you have let's say Jane. And this value, let's say 0002. Okay. And then close it out. Oops, close it out. My ID dot put, right? Let's say David, right? 0003. And again, you just go so on and so forth, right? My ID dot put John, Jane, David, Maria, 0004, and you can just keep on going. Okay. Obviously you cannot have this something else. You cannot just change the order. Let's say if I was to do 0004 and then we type in Maria, it just gives you the error like, hey, you cannot do that, right? You have to put in the right thing. It says the method string and integer in the Hashmap type string integer is not applicable whenever we are putting int and a string, right? This is different. So that's why we always have to make sure that we are putting them in the right order. So order does matter in this case. Okay. So you have this. So if I want to print out this result, how will I do that? Just S out, right? And you just do my ID. And let's go ahead and print this. There you go. See, you have John, David, Maria, Jane. So one thing you probably noticed, this thing did not print out in order, right? So this thing is randomized. So right now we have John, David, Maria, and Jane over here, right? So if I was to print this thing out again, this thing may or may not change. So it just randomized. It doesn't. So let's go ahead and create another one actually. My ID dot put, I don't know, ABC, and let's say 0005. And I close it out. Run as you can see, this order is not in the right order. It just changes automatically. It's randomized. So I cannot expect the same result will happen every single time. This thing can potentially change. So that's just a heads up and a FYI. If you're thinking, if I'm printing out in this specific order, why it doesn't, it just randomized. So that is how it is. Okay. And another thing over here, we cannot, even though we have Hashmap, right? Now you may be thinking, because this is coming from the map, why can't we use just the map, right? Again, the reason we cannot use this because in map is an interface, and within this map we have various different options available, and Hashmap is just one of them, right? So in this case, we just have to use Hashmap, which is part of map. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but just go along with me on this one. Let's use Hashmap, whatever, even though it's a map type, even though it's a part of map interface, but we cannot use just the keyword map in there. We have to use map. We have to use Hashmap as is. That said, right, if we want to get a specific value, right, let's say John or something, if we want to get what that thing specifically means, so in that case we can do S out, right? In this case, if I just put John, I'm sorry, we have to do my ID dot, and we do get, right? Get is the keyword, right? And then object is key. So we just need to put in the put in the key, and again, the key and value, right? So we have not my ID, you can just say John, right? And this would, what this would do, this would give me the value right there. If we were to do Jane, right, it gives me the value. So let's say I do 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Now it gives me the whole thing. It's because it was just 0, it just ignored it, and it gave me that value. But anyways, you can just have that, right? Or if I do ABC and I run, it gives me that specific value. That's how I would get a specific value, key value pair, right? If I provide the key, I would get the value of that. Yeah. And if we wanted to create a new one, right? So I have all of this thing created, right? If I do, and again, there's a couple of different things that I can do. If something already exists, right? In that case, what it would do. So if I do, let's say, my ID dot put, right? And again, let's say I put John here again, and I have that, 10001, right? So 10001, right? That is the value that I had in there. So let's say I change this thing to 1006, right? So I'm going to print out all of those things again so you guys can see the difference, right? So let's see what it does. Okay. Now, in this case, as you see, this first line is basically this thing. It's printing out all this thing, John 10001, and that's all the values. And then you have 1005, which is this thing, the value of ABC. And on this one, whenever we are updating John, and then we are saying 1006, what it does, it basically takes that specific value and it replaces whatever the John's value was over here, it replaces with this value. Okay, so if it already exists, it'll basically update that specific value. If I was to do my ID dot replace, so you have a couple of them over here, right? You can do the key value over here, and then we also have this thing right here. So let's say I do this, replace, right? In this case, let's say I'm putting in John, right? And then I replace this with 10007, right? And let's go ahead and print out this thing one more time so you guys can see what happens now. Okay, this time, as you saw, that this thing replaced this current one. Now, what if I change this? I left it as is, right? What happens at that time? It doesn't really do anything, right? Because it's the same value, but it does. You can say it just overrode that specific value. Okay. There's another function that exists, or another method that exists. What it does right here, I'm going to show you my ID dot you can say put if absent. Okay, right here, put if absent. In this case, what we're doing, if something does not exist, in that case, update, in that case, add that in. Okay, so what that means is, let's say I put Joe, right? And I have 10008, right? And let's go ahead and print this out again. Run as, right? So you can see that Joe didn't exist before, so we created it. Now, let's do this one more time, right? So in this case, I'm just going to copy that. And let's say instead of Joe, let's say I do John, right? And I do 1006, and I print that out, right? See, you see, in this case, it didn't really do anything, right? It just left it as is. It's like only if something is absent, only at that time it'll give you that value, or only at that time it'll enter in that value. Otherwise, so it'll basically see the whole list, right? If it doesn't exist, in that case, it'll just basically create it. If it exists already, it'll just ignore it, basically. Okay. So yeah, hopefully this makes sense to you guys. There are other functionalities that you can obviously do with this as well. I'll let you guys practice those, but hopefully this makes sense as far as what a hash map is. So just to sum up, hash map is basically a map, right, with a set of key value pair. Okay, key value pair. Just that's the key important part. So you need a key, you have a value, right? So John is associated with this. Again, if you guys want, you can change up the order as well, but that's basically how you do this thing. If you want to remove something, obviously you can, which is my ID dot, remove. And over here, if I just say John, right, and I was to print this, it'll just remove John altogether. Okay, see, John doesn't exist here anymore. Yeah, cool. So that's basically how you do this, guys. If you do have any other questions, please let us know. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Thank you so much. Have a good one, guys.